LesLeigh, what do people struggle with interpersonal communication specifically?
Okay, so I would say that my students most often struggle with conflict management. So different people have different conflict management styles, right? So there's some people that compete and want to be right in every single situation. There's people that are doormats and like whatever you want to do is fine with me. And then there's people that view a conflict as a set of problems to be solved. So, and honestly, in these interpersonal classes, or interpersonal communication classes, there's students that are like, well, how do I approach conflict? And I'm like, well, you got to use your I language. Like, I feel that I'm not important to you when you're late. Okay. Instead of being like, you're always late, you can never get your stuff together. And they're like, okay, so basically you want me to, lie or like change who I am. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're changing the way that we talk to other people so that we don't put people on the defense, right? And then if you think like work situations, that's also interpersonal. You can't talk that way to colleagues, right? So they have trouble wrapping their head around that. And if they have more of a competitive type of conflict management style, they really have a hard time adjusting that.
Awesome. So conflict specifically, I know that the frames that we teach, the approaches that we teach in conflict management aren't a panacea, and they can't solve all problems. But I also know that some of the things that you're teaching in your interpersonal relationships class can massively improve the quality of life for people who are struggling in their relationships. Can you touch on some of those things that you think are most valuable for people who are interested in interpersonal and relational communication?
Yes. So what I think is valuable in a conflict is, so we teach this term called gunny sacking. And y'all, I'm guilty of this. So, you and your boyfriend, y'all are arguing over the dishes, but then, something pisses you off. So then you move on to that. And then you just kind of snowball all of the conflicts. And then you just get it all out in the open. That's probably a negative thing to do, right? So what we want to do is we want to stick with the problem at hand, and hopefully you and your conversational partner are on the same page, that both of you just want to solve the problem. So each person may have to give a little bit, but just don't take things too personally, right? In a conflict, just kind of view it as a problem that needs to be solved. And I think that takes away a lot of the anxiety and emotion related to conflict.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the anxiety and the emotion. I know that a lot of times we're bringing our stressors from work, and it's not even my wife's, speech or language that is at issue, or my speech or language that it's at the issue. It's something deeper. It's something bigger. It's something from your job, or something from with the kids, and a conversation you had with your kids, or something that you had with a friend. So all of these other contexts can sometimes bleed into our relationships. And there's no such thing as compartmentalization when it comes to those emotions. What are some strategies for emotional management in the context of having difficult conversations with relational partners, or maybe people at work, or friends? Are there some general strategies that would help us to navigate those more emotional contexts?
I think just taking a minute to think. So sometimes, right, like I'll get a snarky, or I'll take it snarky. I'll get a snarky email from a student. I'll be like, oh my God, right? But instead of like shooting back an email right then and there, I'm like, now I'm going to think about this a minute. And I may take, 12 hours to think about how I'm going to respond to it. But I've noticed that when I do that, the outcomes are way better. Same thing with my husband. Okay. If we have a conflict and it's heated, I just, we're like, okay, well, let's just step away from just to kind of collect our thoughts. And then 9 times out of 10, we come back calm and ready to talk about that issue. Same thing with my kids. Like, my kids will drive me up a wall. Okay. I will just be like, okay, I will be back. Okay, honey, I'm leaving you with these kids. Step away. Then I'll come back and handle the conflict. So just don't be afraid to take a minute for yourself to collect those thoughts.
I love that. So if you have the luxury of being able to step away from that particular
Yes.
situation, and it is a luxury, it's a privilege, isn't it?
Right.
It's a
But see,
privilege.
we live in this society where we think that an email should be like, that we need to get back, respond as quickly as possible. That's not true, right? You can take a minute, okay? Or, just tell your other person that you're in the argument with, I'm getting really heated right now. Is there any way that we can talk about this in a minute for me to calm down? I don't think that's dorky, but sometimes my students think that that's dorky. I don't think it's dorky.
I agree completely. I think taking some time is always a good thing.
Yeah.
And I know, especially, for example, when we're in more of a real-time chat kind of thread or something like that, and you're using an emoji, and then you fire it off, and you're like, oh wait, maybe that emoji, maybe laughing cry face wasn't the right call
Right.
here, and that might tip someone to be more angry or frustrated with me, when
Right.
really I was just trying to like diffuse the situation, because I just like to laugh, and maybe that laugh cry emoji face, not that I've had this experience before, but obviously, it sounds familiar. So
Yeah.
taking time to reconsider those things before you send can really save a world of trouble, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of, because I know in communication theory, we teach genderlect, right? Which, there's arguments around like if women and men actually communicate differently. But what we can agree on is that people communicate differently, right? So yeah, somebody may take your emoji the wrong way, or you put a period instead of an exclamation point and it's seen as rude to one person, but totally fine with another person. So
Yeah, I've learned that in some contexts with some people, I need to tap down and not use so many exclamation points. Even
right.
though I'm really excited and I want to use an exclamation
See,
point.
I'm the same way. I'm the same, and I'm a hugger.
Mhm.
Some people are not huggers, right? So that also goes in with our interpersonal communication, is that some people really value their space while other people are touchy-feely. So it's really just about adapting your communication. And people are like, well, what are people going to do for me? Well, it's not really, you can't control other people. It's you. You can only control yourself. And you can do that by adapting your communication to other people as much as possible.
Yeah, adaptation, that's an important thing. I wonder if you have any strategies of adaptation that people who are watching could take back to their relationships today, and how they're adapting their communication to better fit the context.
So it's kind of hard whenever you meet somebody for the first time, but your partners, okay? Think about how they like to be like, okay, so if, as an example, and I know that this is basic, forgive me, y'all, but in my classes, I give my students the love languages quiz, and that kind of tells you which love language is, which you prefer. So how do you want your partner to show you love? This could be a good tool. Okay. So, as an example, y'all, my mom is always giving me gifts, and I really don't like gifts because they just don't give me good gifts. Okay. I would rather her take my kids for a weekend for me to like sit at home and do a big bowl of nothing. Right. So one time we sat down and we did this test, and I'm like, this is how I want affection to be shown to me. Her is acts of service. So she wants me to like cook her a meal or clean something. So that can shed a lot of light on how your partner wants love to be shown to them. So that's a way that you can adapt.
Tell us a little bit about love languages. That sounds fascinating.
Okay, so there are 5 different love languages. So basically, this is how you prefer affection to be shown to you. And the 5 different love languages, and a lot of students I've noticed take it on their own time. So words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, gifts, and touch. So like, let's say that your partner is high in touch. You don't really like to be touched that much. Okay. So yours is quality time. But they keep showing their love to you in a touchy-feely type of way. Well, that affection is really not being communicated to you. So you have to learn about that other person to figure out what they do view as affection. But I also want to provide this caveat. So, just because so as an example, my love language is quality time. So just because my love language is quality time does not mean that I never want to be touched or that I never want to receive a gift. Well, actually, I take that back. I do never want to receive a gift. Or, I don't want my husband to do dishes every once in a while, right? It's just the one that's at the forefront.
Are there any things that you absolutely love to talk about that we haven't discussed that you talk about in interpersonal that really light you up?
Yes. Okay. So I do like to talk about attraction, because there's this idea that we're attracted to people just because they're there, from proximity. And, like students, they have a hard time wrapping their head around it, especially those that are in the high school sweetheart relationships. There is partial, that you just started dating that person because they're there. I know that's at least true for my high school sweetheart, but anyways, but the other thing that I love to talk about is self-disclosure. So I'm sure those of you, you've met somebody and you're like, I just don't connect with them. They haven't shared anything with me. Like, I don't, and the main way that we connect with people and deepen our relationships with other people is to share an array of different topics with them and go in depth on those topics. So I know a ton of information about my best friend in Chicago, right? Same for her to me. And we have an intimate relationship. So an intimate just means close, y'all. So, the way, if you want a relationship to deepen and go somewhere, it's important to have that vulnerable component of self-disclosure and not be afraid to share that information within reason. So, you don't want to share information that's, not right for the occasion, but good incremental self-disclosure should deepen relationships. And I love to talk about that with students.
I love self-disclosure too as a topic because it relates to so many other things in our discipline of interpersonal communication specifically. I'm thinking specifically of Altman and Taylor's model of social penetration, which has the classic onion model. Can you talk a little bit about social penetration and Altman and Taylor's theory?
Yes. Okay. So social penetration theory. So I call this in my classes, I call it the Shrek theory. So, Donkey and Shrek, they're walking through and they're like, ogres are like layers. Ogres are like onions. We have layers. Okay. Well, people are like that. We disclose in layers. So, you don't walk up to somebody and tell them, this is how many sexual partners I've had. That would be strange and that would be weird. Okay. What do you start with self-disclosure? So you start on the outer rung, easy to get to. So what are some, think of some things that you go to. So where are you from? What do you like to do in your spare time? Then you may move in a little bit inward in the onion at the next layer. Tell me about your family and, some beliefs. And then, you go in another layer. What are some of your pet peeves? Okay. So you don't disclose things all at once. You'd self-disclose things from very superficial information to more deep, intimate relationships. And also Altman and Taylor's model is composed of breadth and depth. So breadth is the number of topics that you talk about. So I always tell students on a first date, you are going to be talking probably about an array of different topics. So like, what do you do for fun? Where are you from? Where'd you go to college? Like these sorts of things. So you have more breadth in that situation and not very much depth. But the longer that the relationship goes on, it's going to get deeper if it continues.
Thank you so much, LesLeigh, for joining us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.